You may find it difficult to believe that Brazil's request for assistance in the amount of $12.05 million from the United States was denied. In actuality, both economically and politically, Brazil and the United States have consistently maintained tight connections, and the two sides have consistently maintained good collaboration. However, due to its own interests, the United States declined to work with Brazil. China's $12.05 million offshore mobile oil factory was brought from China to Brazil at the exact time that Brazil needed assistance the most, totally resolving the issues the country was facing. In this video, I will describe the offshore mobile oil factory that China helped Brazil develop, as well as why the United States refused Brazil's request for assistance. Before we start, subscribe to Chin News to watch all the secret projects. So let's begin. Brazil is home to the second largest oil reserves in South America, behind Venezuela. The nation now has 1.7 billion tons of proven recoverable oil reserves. Brazil will produce 2.98 million barrels of oil per day in 2020, about 3.3 of the world's total oil output. It is clear that this nation has a lot of oil resources. Brazil, however, stands out significantly from other oil exporters. Relevant statistics indicate that Brazil's onshore oil reserves are actually rather little compared to its offshore reserve. Brazil must naturally find a means to utilize offshore oil in order to expand oil output and elevate its international standing at a time when the entire world is experiencing an energy crisis. Exploiting offshore oil is not a simple process for Brazil, though. Brazil intends to construct two massive floating production storage and offloading oil tankers, or FSOs, that can operate at sea in order to explore offshore oil resources. The concept calls for Brazil to construct a large offshore oil tanker that weighs 50,000 tons. It will exist as a sea giant once finished, but it's unfortunate that this offshore oil plant's construction did not proceed as planned. The technological difficulties has increased dramatically because to the displacement being far more than the aircraft carriers currently held by the United States and other facility issues. The major issue facing Brazil is that, although having a sound strategy, they lack the necessary technology. Brazil is in desperate need of support from certain technologically advanced nations, and the United States is one of the best candidates. They originally considered the United States because of the long-standing tight ties between Brazil and the country. The United States is a technologically advanced nation in the globe. Brazil paid $12.05 million to approach the U.S. for assistance in order to construct two FSO devices for offshore oil and gas production. Unfortunately, the United States vehemently refused this collaboration because after careful examination, the United States concludes that Brazil's potential earnings from this project are negligible. The most significant point is that Brazil had previously been asked by the United States to raise oil output, but Brazil had refused due to the implications of the worldwide situation. The Brazilian offshore oil plant proposal was denied by the U.S. in a number of instances, but the United States has other options besides Brazil. Brazil staked its hopes of constructing FSO on China when the United States rejected it. So, will China assist the state of Brazil? In actuality, China places a high value on its collaboration with Brazil. Brazil has retained its position as the largest and greatest commercial partner with China for 13 years as the nation hosting China's largest investment project in Latin America. The value of commerce between China and Brazil will rise by 37 in 2021 to reach $164.1 billion. China was eager to assist Brazil and struck an agreement with it when the two countries explored building two offshore floating big oil tankers for production, storage, and offloading, even though the $12.05 million project offered little in return. Additionally, China has always wished to invite Brazil to participate in the Belt and Road idea of collaborative development. As a result of their collaboration this time, China and Brazil's ties will improve, and their future commercial connections will be strengthened. Can China finally assist Brazil in the construction of two enormous oil tankers equipped with floating offshore production, storage, and offloading? The Chinese government has assembled a fleet of FSO vessels for use in offshore oil exploration. In conjunction with Brazil, China is constructing two offshore floating oil tankers called the 60 and 70. These tankers will be used for production, storage, and offloading. The 70 is a machine that is capable of producing oil, storing oil, and discharging oil while it is floating on the ocean. It is also frequently referred to as a FSO device for offshore oil and gas production. Prior to the production of the 70, China also manufactured the FSO unit designated as the 67. In contrast, to the 67, the newly improved 70 has a performance that is noticeably superior, and its useful life may be extended to a maximum of 25 years. The 70 is also capable of diving to a depth of 2,200 meters, reaching the bottom of the ocean. Since this data completely outperforms the existing generic nuclear submarines, Brazil will find it much simpler to exploit underwater oil in the future. The upper half of the 70 offshore floating production storage and offloading oil tanker is used mostly for regular processing activities, while the lower portion is used primarily for storage purposes. The capacity of its hull to store crude oil is estimated to be 1.6 million barrels, and its capacity to handle natural gas is around 6 million cubic meters, according to estimates performed using international crude oil standards. Because of this, Brazil is able to cut down on the amount of time spent working in the mines and improve the process as a whole. Because they are aware that working at sea may subject them to adverse weather conditions, Chinese engineers have also fitted the 70th unit for offshore oil and gas production with a number of different technologies that can help them combat the effects of severe weather. Even traditional shipbuilding nations like Japan and South Korea are discouraged by China's dominance in the offshore floating oil tanker production, storage, and offloading market. There are very few countries in the world that can compete with China in this market. After an onerous endeavor of 18 months' duration, China ultimately transported the two incredibly enormous pieces of equipment in December 2019 from Qingdao, which is located in the Shandong province. They arrived in Brazil without incident 45 days after their departure. Not only did the successful delivery of these two FSOs showcase China's capabilities to construct offshore engineering equipment, but it also solidified China's strategic collaboration with Brazil in the energy industry. The Brazil Melophase project is now underway and is the world's largest pre-salt ultra-deepwater oil field. China is now able to take part in the project. However, the vast majority of people are completely unaware of the fact that China and Brazil's alliance was a decision that was fraught with significant risk. What in the name of all that is holy is going on in this place? When China built the 67 and 70, bad reports about Petrobras's unethical practices were prevalent in the media. China has just announced that it will discontinue manufacture of the 67 and 70, and it is possible that it will also stop seriously considering the acquisition. If this is the case, it shows that China's efforts have been fruitless. Thus, this is an indication of that. The Chinese government is showing a lot of reluctance to finish such a massive undertaking. As a direct consequence of this, China began to make persistent efforts to contact with Brazil and sped up the process of technological advancement. To our great relief, Brazil in the end agreed to support the Chinese proposal and said that it would maintain its purchase of the 67 and 70 electronic products. In 2019, these two extraordinarily big pieces of Chinese equipment were brought to Brazil without a hitch. Click on these videos to watch more exciting projects that will shock you completely.